Imagine being woken up like right in the middle of the night. You just hear this sound of someone trying to mash your front door into splinters.
Oh man, terrifying.
Right. The wood is literally cracking, the hinges are groaning, and the person who's screaming your name from the other side of that door, it is the exact same quote unquote friend who, drugged you and blackmailed you less than 24 hours ago.
Yeah, it's just a nightmare scenario.
It really is. So today, for you listening at home, we have our hands on the complete unredacted files, the raw, exclusive facts from the explosive showdown on Memphis Avenue. Yes, we are pulling apart the events of episode 6 of The Fruit Salad Adventures.
Finally.
Exactly, finally. Our mission today is to just expose the true motives behind this ultimate betrayal by Potato, Keisha, and Tamarind. We have the texts, we have the timelines, and we are laying it all out in this exclusive investigative report. So, okay, let's unpack this.
I am so ready for this. Because what we are looking at today, it represents a massive, like a structural shift in everything we've been tracking regarding the wacky produce underworld.
Totally.
This isn't just some random street fight. It's the violent culmination of a highly orchestrated syndicate operation. The source documents we're analyzing, they map out a level of premeditation, psychological warfare, and just institutional corruption that fundamentally alters how we have to view these characters.
Yeah, to really grasp the gravity of this showdown, I feel like we have to look at the baseline. I was reviewing the source files for the earlier episodes, and Strawberryna seems completely harmless.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, how does a quiet, seed-collecting strawberry end up in a bare-knuckle street brawl on Memphis Avenue? It's wild.
To understand that explosion, you really have to understand the pressure cooker she was forced into. I mean, Strawberryna was the definition of wholesome. Her biggest vulnerability was simply trusting her supposed friend, Tamarind.
Right.
So Tamarind convinces her to go to the Wacky Produce Club, purposefully stands her up, and leaves a vacuum for Potato Keisha to swoop in.
Which is just so calculated.
It is. Keisha plays the instant bestie, isolates her, and gets her to that exclusive VIP party run by Pineapple Lisa and Mushroom Marv. And we know that party was actually a front for an illegal trafficking ring.
Yeah, a total trap.
Exactly. Keisha drugs Strawberryna with a spiked drink and a massive blunt, sets her up with a cucumber man, snaps a highly compromising blackmail photo, and then, completely abandons her when the police inevitably raid the place.
I was actually trying to explain the mechanics of this to a colleague yesterday, and the best analogy I could come up with is this. Imagine your trusted coworker invites you to a casual networking event.
Okay.
You show up, your coworker isn't there, but this incredibly charismatic person takes you under their wing, they hand you a drink, introduce you around, make you feel like $1,000,000.
You think you're making a great connection.
Exactly. And then suddenly, the doors are kicked in, the FBI is raiding the place for money laundering, and your new friend is slipping out the back door with a photo of you holding a briefcase full of marked bills.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that hits the nail on the head.
You walk in thinking you're making a professional connection, but you are actually the mark.
That is precisely the dynamic.
Yeah.
Strawberryna was never a guest at that party. She was inventory.
Inventory. Wow.
But what makes the Memphis Avenue showdown in episode 6 so compelling is that the inventory fought back. And the psychological trigger for that rebellion is incredibly complex. It's rooted deeply in how victims process sudden, overwhelming betrayal.
Right, and we have the exact moments leading up to the physical fight. Strawberryna is in her apartment, reeling from the trauma of the raid, the blackmail, just the total collapse of her reality.
The walls are closing in on her.
Yeah, and then comes that aggressive, violent pounding at her front door downstairs. Bam, bam.
Yeah.
It's Potato Keisha screaming for her to open the door, calling her a little snitch, and threatening to literally mash her door down.
Mashing the door, yeah.
This is the moment Strawberryna experiences a complete psychological snap.
The source text provides a very clear window into her internal monologue right at this precipice. She makes a conscious, deliberate choice. She says, and I'm quoting here, "I, meaning me, Miss Strawberryna, has officially left the wholesome church lady persona in the crisping drawer."
The crisping door. I love that so much. It's such a brilliant, vivid metaphor for self-preservation.
It really is. It operates on multiple levels, too.
Yeah.
I mean, the crisping drawer is a controlled environment, right? It's designed to preserve, to keep things safe and isolated from the harsher elements of the refrigerator.
Right. It keeps the humidity perfect.
Exactly. It stops decay, but it also fundamentally stops growth. It is a state of suspended animation.
Hmm.
So by declaring that she is leaving that persona in the crisping drawer, she is accepting the heat, the danger, and the inevitable bruising of reality.
She's just done hiding.
Yeah, she is stepping out of preservation mode and into pure survival mode. What's fascinating here is how the source material frames this transition. It wasn't just fear driving her. It was a profound awakening to the fact that her sweetness, her very nature, was the exact weapon being used against her.
But I want to challenge the catalyst here, or at least open it up for debate, because the text explicitly says maybe it was the lingering effects of whatever she put in that blunt, or maybe I was just tired of being the sweet, quiet fruit everyone took advantage of.
That's a crucial line, yeah.
So was this violent reaction a chemical imbalance from the drug still in her system, or was it the absolute soul-crushing exhaustion of being a victim?
I lean heavily toward the latter, honestly.
You think it was purely psychological?
Yeah, I mean, at some point, the psychological weight just snaps your restraints. Think about it. What would it take for you to throw away your entire reputation in a split second? To step out onto your front porch in your night clothes and engage in a brawl?
It would take a lot.
Exactly. It takes the realization that the rules you've been playing by are a complete joke. I see your point, but I wouldn't entirely discount the chemical aspect, though. The source material emphasizes her altered state for a reason, I think. Systemic rage is the fuel, certainly, but the chemical imbalance from the night before acts as the spark.
The spark that bypasses her normal impulse control.
Precisely. The drugs lowered the barriers that her church lady persona would normally rely on to avoid conflict. When Keisha shows up, demanding entry, threatened to mash the door down, she is operating on the flawed assumption that Strawberryna is still the compliant, passive victim from the party.
Right. Keisha thinks she's dealing with the same girl from last night.
Exactly. Keisha miscalculated the psychological toll of her own betrayal, which was compounded by the very substances she used to induce compliance in the first place.
Oh, that's such a good point. And that miscalculation leads to one of the most visceral physical altercations we've ever analyzed on this deep dive. Strawberryna doesn't cower in her apartment waiting for the door to give way.
Not at all.
She throws the door open so hard it bounces off the wall and she roars, "You want a piece of this pie, Keisha?"
Notice the reclamation of her own identity in that dialogue, too. At the party, she was being consumed against her will. She was an ingredient for someone else's profit.
Yeah.
Here, she is offering a piece of this pie as a direct physical threat. She is weaponizing the very sweetness they tried to exploit.
It's incredible. So Keisha lunges first, of course. The text notes her long synthetic extensions are flying as she tries to grab Strawberryna's stem. And the detail of the synthetic extensions, I feel like that perfectly highlights the juxtaposition of these two characters.
Oh, 100%.
Keisha is presenting herself as this glamorous VIP club goer, but she's covered in artificiality. Nothing about her presentation is authentic.
Which contrasts so sharply with Strawberryna.
Yeah.
I mean, she's standing there in her night clothes, raw, already bruised from the previous night, with tangled blonde hair. Strawberryna has been violently stripped of all pretense, while Keisha is literally shedding her synthetic armor as she attacks.
Wow, yeah.
It is a collision of raw, exposed trauma against manufactured bravado.
So they spill down the steps and onto the cracked asphalt of Memphis Avenue. Keisha is screaming, "You snitched on us to the feds. You ruined everything."
The irony there is thick.
Yeah. And Strawberryna, fueled by this cocktail of adrenaline and rage, plants her feet, throws her weight forward, and delivers a devastating right hook. The text is incredibly specific about the impact. It says her fist sank right into Keisha's midsection, hitting her potato starch core.
Potato starter core.
Yeah, and hitting Keisha felt like hitting a solid sack of raw russets.
The physical realities of that punch are crucial for understanding the power dynamic shift. Strawberryna is throwing a strike against an opponent fundamentally built to withstand immense pressure. I mean, potatoes are tough.
Right, they're literally grown in the dirt.
Exactly. For Strawberryna to deliver a blow that knocks the wind out of her, sinking into that starch core, it requires a kinetic force born entirely of desperate, unadulterated rage. She is bypassing her own physical limitations through sheer willpower.
And she ignored her own bruised red skin. She didn't care about the pain radiating off her arm. Because when you hit something as solid as a sack of raw russets, you are taking damage yourself.
Oh, for sure.
But the immediate aftermath of that punch is stunning. Keisha, the confident, calculating puppet master from the VIP lounge, is suddenly gasping for air on the asphalt. Her grip tightens, her eyes well up with tears of pain. She is weeping.
It's a shocking reversal.
The predator has been completely neutralized by the prey.
It is a complete and utter inversion of the hierarchy they established the night before.
Yeah.
But we cannot analyze this victory in a vacuum, because the source text explicitly introduces an audience to this violence.
Ah, yes. The neighborhood grapes.
Yes. Out of the corner of her eye, while standing over a weeping Keisha, Strawberina sees a couple of the neighborhood grapes standing near an alleyway, completely frozen in terror.
Just watching the whole thing.
They had never seen the sweet, church-going Strawberina throw hands like a seasoned heavyweight.
So what does this mean for her moving forward? I mean, the grapes represent the community at large, the public perception. Strawberina won the physical fight, but in doing so, she officially destroyed her pristine image in the eyes of her community.
That's the tragic part.
Right, because the grapes don't know about the setup at the club, they don't know about the blackmail photo or the illegal orgy or the drugs. All they see is the quiet church lady brawling in her pajamas on the cracked asphalt of Memphis Avenue.
And that encapsulates the ultimate tragedy of victim retaliation. To defend yourself against a monster, you are frequently forced to exhibit monstrous behavior in public.
Wow. Yeah, that's heavy.
The syndicate, Keisha, Tamarin, the club operators, they don't care about public perception in the same way because they operate in the shadows by design. But Strawberina's entire currency in her community was her wholesomeness.
It was everything she had.
Even though she successfully defended herself against a violent physical assault, Keisha effectively succeeded in destroying Strawberina's community standing. The grapes will never look at her the same way again. The crisping drawer isn't just something she chose to leave. It is now permanently closed to her. The community will not let her back in.
Man, it's an incredibly heavy price to pay just for the right to exist without being extorted. But, Strawberina winning that physical fight wasn't a victory anyway. It was the bait.
Yes.
Because the second she throws that punch, the streetlights illuminate exactly who has been watching them the whole time.
This is where the narrative sharply pivots from an interpersonal conflict to a massive institutional conspiracy.
Yeah.
The arrival of law enforcement changes the entire calculus of the scene.
A loud voice booms down the street. Stop it! Both of you, drop your hands. A car door slams. And running toward them, from an unmarked patrol car parked under a street lamp, is Officer Benson.
Officer Benson.
Unbelievable.
The nice, thoughtful police officer who, just episodes ago, had given Strawberina a safe ride home. The juxtaposition of Benson's behavior here, compared to Episode 3, is deeply unsettling, and it speaks volumes about how power operates in this city.
It really does.
In Episode 3, the air in his cruiser was heavy, but his voice had a gentle, grounding warmth. He told her she was a victim. He told her how the syndicate uses innocent people as shields. He drove her to her apartment, told her to lock her doors, get some sleep, and, quote, just breathe.
He was the good guy.
He presented himself as her protector, the one safe harbor in a corrupted system.
And now he is charging at her with his service weapon drawn. And here's where it gets really interesting. The source text explicitly states that he wasn't looking at Keisha.
Right.
He was looking directly at Strawberina. And his expression wasn't friendly anymore. His eyes are cold. His voice is flat. He orders her to step away from the suspect, and then he arrests both of them for assault.
It's baffling on the surface.
Why the sudden shift in allegiance? Why aim the weapon at the victim and not the person who was violently trying to break down her door just moments before?
That is the pivotal question of this entire investigation. To understand Benson's actions, we have to listen very closely to what he says next. As he's putting the cuffs on, he looks down at Keisha and tells her, "The chief wants a word with you about that little deal you broke."
That little deal. Okay, let's connect the dots here because this throws the entire timeline into a new light. We know from the Episode 4 newspaper that Keisha and the Sour Pickle were released after, quote-unquote, cooperating with authorities.
That was the official headline, yeah.
So what exactly are the mechanics of this deal?
If we synthesize the data regarding how informed structures work, a standard deal requires the asset to cease independent criminal activity and provide actionable intelligence on larger targets.
Okay, so she had to give someone up.
Right. Did Keisha promise to deliver someone higher up the food chain than Pineapple Lisa and Mushroom Marv? Or, more likely, given the specific context of this Memphis Avenue confrontation, was part of her deal a strict mandate to stay away from Strawberina?
Oh, that makes perfect sense. Because Strawberina is the wild card in their operation. She was the one who gave the police the initial information about Keisha at the party.
Exactly.
If the police are using Keisha as a pawn, they need to manage her closely. Keisha went rogue. She showed up at Strawberryna's house to get the digital file back, the blackmail photo.
This raises an important question regarding Keisha's status. Was she a highly valued rogue informant who simply overstepped her bounds because she was greedy for the blackmail money? Or was she a desperate criminal running out of options, lashing out at the person she mistakenly believed had tipped off the cops about the entire syndicate?
Based on her screaming, she clearly thought Strawberryna had snitched on the whole operation. But let's look at the arrest itself. Because Benson arresting Strawberryna makes absolutely no sense from a protective law enforcement standpoint.
Not at all.
He knows she's the victim of a trafficking ring setup. He knows Keisha is the aggressor at the door, yet he arrests them both. It feels like a containment protocol. He's sweeping the whole mess off the street before it gets any louder and draws more attention from the grapes.
It is absolute risk mitigation. The police are managing a volatile asset in Keisha, and Strawberryna is just collateral damage in that management process. But Keisha's reaction to the arrest is what solidifies the deeply cynical reality of this underworld.
Yeah, she doesn't panic.
She doesn't beg Benson for another chance. She stumbles backward, still coughing from the punch to her core, clutching her stomach. And then she flashes a wicked, bloody smirk.
That smirk is the most chilling detail in the entire source document. She looks right at Strawberryna, who is also in handcuffs, and wheezes. I told you, Brina. In this city, everyone gets juiced.
Everyone gets juiced.
Yes.
Let's really break down the application of that metaphor.
Yes, please. What does getting juiced mean here?
It is the process of extracting the absolute maximum value, the vital essence, from an entity, and then discarding the pulp. The pulp has no intrinsic value once the extraction is complete.
Keisha is revealing the nihilistic reality of the wacky produce underworld to her. She's telling Strawberryna, you thought you were a person. You thought you were a citizen with rights, a good neighbor, a church-going fruit who could rely on the police for protection.
But you're not.
Right. But to the syndicate and to the police department, you are just a resource to be squeezed.
Precisely. Keisha was juicing Strawberryna for blackmail money. The police are juicing Keisha for convictions and intelligence. And now, the police are juicing Strawberryna, arresting her to force Keisha back into compliance, basically using her as leverage.
It's a vicious cycle.
Everyone in this ecosystem is using everyone else. The smirk is Keisha's grim acknowledgement that even though she is in handcuffs, bleeding on the pavement, and caught breaking her deal with the chief, Strawberryna isn't in exactly the same boat. The illusion of safety, the illusion of a just system, has been completely shattered for the Strawberry.
It makes my blood run cold, because the terrifying lesson here is that you can follow all the rules, stay in your crisping drawer, mind your own business, and the system will still find a way to put you in the blender.
The blender always wins.
So now that we understand the catastrophic outcome on Memphis Avenue, we really have to look back at the origins. Why did they target Strawberryna in the first place? What were the underlying goals?
Well, based on our analysis of the source texts, we have identified 3 distinct overlapping motives that drove this conspiracy. The first is the most direct and easily identifiable, which is the financial and blackmail play.
Okay, let's talk about the timeline from episode 1. Tamarind, who is supposedly Strawberryna's close friend, convinces her to go to the Waukee Produce Club. Tamarind promises to be there, acting as a wingman, but she never shows up.
The classic ghosting setup.
Yeah, she purposefully stands Strawberryna up, leaving her alone in a VIP lounge. This creates a highly specific vulnerability window, and within 10 minutes, Keisha slides into the exact booth where Tamarind was supposed to be.
It is a seamlessly coordinated handoff. Tamarind served as the scout, identifying a high-value, naive target who would be easily disoriented by the club environment. Keisha serves as the acquisition specialist.
She closes the deal.
Exactly. She charms her, gets her dancing, gets her drinking, and establishes a false sense of intimacy. Then, the next night, Keisha isolates her entirely at the VIP party, alters her state of consciousness with drugs, and orchestrates the compromising situation with the Cucumber Man.
And the smoking gun for this financial motive happens right in the middle of the party haze in episode 2. Tamarind walks in, completely sober, totally detached from the madness of the room. She walks right past Strawberryna, who is half naked and heavily drugged, and goes straight to Keisha.
So cold-blooded.
And what does Keisha do? She hands Tamarind a thick envelope, immediate payment for services rendered.
Tamarind's subsequent quote leaves absolutely zero room for ambiguity regarding their intent. She looks at her supposed friend, taking in her compromised state, and says, "Your squeaky clean image is about to buy us a whole lot of green. Tomorrow morning, your pristine little life belongs to us, unless you do exactly what we say.
This is a textbook execution of compromat, gathering compromising material to ensure loyalty or extract wealth. They didn't target Strawberina despite her being wholesome. They targeted her specifically because she was wholesome.
The wholesomeness was the asset.
Yes, a scandalous photo of Pineapple Lisa at an underground orgy has no market value. That's just a regular Tuesday for her.
Nobody would care.
Right, but a scandalous photo of a church-going, seed-collecting Strawberry with a strange cucumber man, that is highly profitable leverage. They were going to drain her bank account to keep it quiet, or worse, force her to do their dirty work to protect her reputation.
That financial extraction is the micromotive. But the sources reveal a macromotive that operates concurrently, which brings us to the second driving force, the legal decoy strategy.
The blackmail plan was violently interrupted by the police raid, but, was the raid actually a surprise to Keisha and Tamarind? Let's bring in Officer Benson's theory from when he was playing the good cop in episode 3. He told Strawberina, the folks who run those rings, they're pros at finding innocent people to use as shields.
If we synthesize Benson's professional assessment with the actions of Keisha and Tamarind, a deeply cynical institutional strategy emerges. The VIP party was an illegal operation heavily populated by high-value systemic targets. Lisa, Marv, the banana, the broccoli.
All the heavy hitters.
Right. In that specific line of work, police raids are an occupational hazard that must be factored into the business model. You have to plan for them. Keisha and Tamarind needed a patsy. They needed someone so completely naive, so utterly out of their element, that when the doors were inevitably kicked in, they would freeze in panic.
Which is exactly what Strawberina did. She froze. While the police were occupied detaining and processing the terrified, disoriented Strawberry, the seasoned pros slipped out the back exits.
Like clockwork.
Keisha literally admits to this on the phone in episode 4. She calls Strawberina, completely unbothered, and says, "If I hadn't slipped out the back with Tamarind, who do you think was going to pay your bail if things went sideways? We did you a favor."
It's staggering psychological manipulation. She is actively trying to reframe her abandonment as a protective measure, basically gaslighting the victim into gratitude. But the reality is, Strawberina was brought to that specific location to be caught. She was the flare thrown into the dark to distract the heat-seeking missiles.
But, I have to push back on this dual motive theory because there's a logistical contradiction here that just doesn't track for me.
Okay, what is it?
If Strawberina was solely brought there as a legal decoy, a human shield for a raid they knew was coming, why go through the elaborate, highly risky process of setting up the photo with the cucumber man?
Ah, I see what you're saying.
Why pay Tamarind a thick envelope of cash just for a decoy? Finding a random body to freeze during a raid is cheap. Manufacturing high-quality compromat requires precision and investment. Why do both?
That is an excellent observation, and it actually speaks to the profound sophistication of Keisha's operation. It wasn't an either-or strategy. It was a dual-layered insurance policy designed to yield a return on investment, regardless of how the night unfolded.
A double insurance policy. Okay, let's trace the logic on that.
Think about the two possible outcomes of operating that VIP party. Outcome A, the party proceeds without law enforcement intervention. In this scenario, they successfully drug Strawberina, stage the photo, and the next morning they possess a highly lucrative blackmail asset to exploit for cash or compliance over a long period.
Okay, that's the ideal scenario for that.
Exactly. Outcome B, the police raid the party. In this scenario, the long-term blackmail scheme is temporarily burned, but Strawberina immediately serves her secondary purpose. She acts as the frozen, innocent shield that allows Keisha to escape the dragnet and maintain her freedom. Either way, Keisha extracts value from Strawberina's presence. She gets juiced.
Wow. It's sociopathic risk management. They literally hedged their bets using a woman's life and reputation as collateral. And that leads us to the third motive, which only becomes clear after the raid concludes, the ultimate informant trade-off.
Yes. Despite Keisha's successful escape during the initial raid, we know from the episode 4 newspaper that she and the Sour Pickle were eventually apprehended. The headline reads, "Informer, Potato and Sour Pickle released after cooperating with authorities."
So she got caught anyway, but she didn't stay in jail, and Strawberina figures this out while pacing in her bedroom. She realizes Keisha didn't just run from the club, she was actively working with the cops.
She slipped.
Or, more accurately, she traded that spicy photo of Strawberina and the Cucumber Man to buy her own freedom.
If we connect this to the broader systemic corruption we're uncovering, the betrayal reaches its absolute zenith here. Keisha didn't just abandon Strawberina to the police at the club. Once Keisha herself was caught, she actively weaponized Strawberry's trauma to secure her own immunity.
That is so dark.
The police likely didn't care about a low-level blackmail scheme. Their mandate was to take down the syndicate. Keisha provided the photo to prove she had actionable intel on the attendees, or perhaps she spun a narrative that Strawberina was actually a key player, throwing her under the bus to muddy the waters and make herself seem invaluable to the prosecution.
She used the very compromat she manufactured to buy her way out of a holding cell. It's a closed-loop system of exploitation. And this brings us to the deep end of the information warfare that actually triggered the Memphis Avenue showdown in episode 6.
The catalyst for the brawl.
Because Keisha didn't just randomly decide to go beat up Strawberina in the middle of the night, she was provoked into that specific action.
To understand the provocation, we really have to look closely at the puppet master. In episode 5, Strawberina starts receiving text messages from an unknown number. This person explicitly identifies themselves as a guardian angel in blue.
Guardian angel in blue, yeah.
They send her live, inside photos of Pineapple Lisa and Mushroom Marv, sitting in an interrogation room, sweating under harsh lights, clearly singing like canaries to the detectives.
The text from the guardian angel reads, "Your friends are turning into a full-on fruit puree down here, Brina. But guess what? Your name hasn't crossed their lips. They told the detectives you were just a last-minute setup, paid for by Keisha and Tamarind."
So they're feeding her intel.
Exactly. So this insider is assuring Strawberina that she's safe from Lisa and Marv's confessions. But then the insider drops the hammer.
The guardian angel follows up with, Potato Keisha just found out that Lisa and Marv are talking. She knows the cops are coming for her, and she knows that Woozer, the one who blew the whistle on her, she's on her way to your place right now to get that digital file back.
Look at the psychological manipulation happening right here. I mean, who is this guardian angel? It's heavily implied to be Officer Benson, or at least someone within the department who has direct access to the interrogation rooms and knows Strawberina's personal cell number.
It has to be a cop.
Right, but look at what they are actively doing. The police are intentionally playing Keisha and Strawberina against each other.
It is a textbook counterintelligence tactic applied on a municipal level. The police deliberately fed false or highly inflammatory information to Keisha. They told Keisha, who was supposedly out on a deal to cooperate, that Strawberina was the one who snitched and ruined everything.
Which is a lie.
A total lie. This deliberately provokes Keisha into a blind, violent rage.
Exactly. Keisha comes pounding on the door, screaming, "You snitched on us to the feds. You ruined everything." She genuinely believes Strawberina is the informant who burned the syndicate. But Strawberina didn't know anything about Lisa and Marv's larger operation.
She was clueless.
She only gave the cops the basic facts about her own setup at the club. The police intentionally pointed a violent, desperate potato at an innocent Strawberry. Why would they do that?
To manufacture a controllable crisis. By provoking Keisha into breaking the terms of her deal and committing a violent assault out in the open, on Memphis Avenue, the police secure immediate, undeniable, probable cause to arrest her on new charges.
Oh, wow.
They don't have to rely on complex conspiracy charges or flipped witnesses who might recant on the stand. They have a blatant public assault. They created a scenario where their informant violated the terms of her release, giving them total leverage over her again.
But they arrested Strawberina, too. That's the part that is so incredibly dark. They used Strawberina as live bait. They let an angry, volatile criminal go to a victim's house, hoping it would escalate into a physical confrontation.
Hoping they would fight.
They essentially set up a cage match. And when Strawberina defends herself, stepping out of the crisping drawer, they swoop in, weapons drawn, and arrest the bait. It is entrapment on a whole new level. The police in this city are operating with the exact same moral compass as the syndicate they are supposedly fighting.
Which brings us back to the architects of this entire apparatus of misery. We spent a lot of time analyzing Keisha's overt aggression, her manipulation, and the police department's covert string pulling. But we must not overlook the silent partner in all of this. We need to analyze Tamarind.
Tamarind. The name literally means sour, and her actions align with that perfectly. Let's look at the division of labor between her and Keisha. Keisha is the muscle. Keisha is the fast-talking, club-hopping, blunt-smoking manipulator on the ground. She is the active agent of chaos who executes the plan. But Tamarind is the architect.
It is a vital distinction in the anatomy of betrayal. I mean, Keisha was a complete stranger to Strawberina until she sat down in that club booth.
It's a random person.
Right. The danger posed by a stranger, while frightening, is an external threat that we are generally conditioned to anticipate. We are taught to be wary of strangers offering drinks. But Tamarind was a friend. Tamarind had proximity, she had history, and most importantly, she had established trust.
Let's read the text message from episode 1 again. Tamarind says, "Are you still going to come hang out with me at the Wacky Produce Club tonight, girlfriend?" And the source text explicitly notes, "She asked me, giggling uncontrollably."
The giggling is so disturbing.
Strawberryna later reflects, "Looking back, I should have paid closer attention to that uncontrollable giggling."
That giggling is not joyous. It is the sound of a sociopath enjoying a private, malicious inside joke at their victim's expense. Tamarind knows exactly what is waiting for Strawberryna at that club. She knows the meat grinder she is actively sending her friend into. The giggling is the manifestation of the thrill of betrayal, the duping delight.
It's deeply insidious. How often do we ignore the uncontrollable giggling of our friends when they push us out of our comfort zones? You think your friend just wants you to live a little, to stop being a dull girl, but they might actually just be seasoning you for the skillet.
It highlights the most painful reality of systemic betrayal. It rarely originates from your enemies. Your enemies simply don't have the access or the emotional leverage required to devastate you. True betrayal requires an unlocked door, and Tamarind held the key to Strawberryna's trust.
Yeah, she let them right in.
When Tamarind walks into that drug-hazy living room during the party, looks at her friend being compromised by a cucumber man, and calmly asks Keisha, "Is the strawberry fully blended?" She is displaying a level of cold-blooded detachment that far exceeds Keisha's overt criminality.
Is the strawberry fully blended? She doesn't even use her name. She strips her of her identity completely. She's just the strawberry now, an ingredient in their twisted smoothie. Tamarind is the true villain of this story.
Without a doubt.
Keisha is a hustler trying to survive, trying to buy her freedom in a corrupt system. Tamarind sold out a pure, trusting friend for a thick envelope of cash. She commodified friendship.
And that commodification is the central unifying theme that binds all these motives, actions, and consequences together. The Wacky Produce underworld operates on a strict, unyielding transactional basis. Innocence, trust, and desperation are not emotional states. They are the primary currencies traded by both the criminals and the authorities.
So let's synthesize this whole deep dive. We started with what looked like a simple, violent street brawl on Memphis Avenue, a church lady throwing a right hook into a potato.
A great visual, by the way.
Truly.
Yeah.
But what we've uncovered in these unredacted files is an incredibly complex web of deceit. Episode 6 wasn't just a catfight. It was the explosive, inevitable collision of a carefully planned blackmail scheme, a cynical police sting operation, and a profound, intimate, personal betrayal.
It is the exact moment all the disparate threads, Tamarind's initial setup, Keisha's double dealing in blackmail, Benson's manipulation of his informants, they're all pulled taut, and the tension finally snaps. Strawberryna's decision to leave the crisping drawer wasn't just about fighting Keisha. It was about violently rejecting the passive role assigned to her by every single faction in this city.
So what does this all mean for us? For you listening, we promised you an investigative report that would expose the true motives, and the truth is darker than we imagined. The Wacky Produce underworld is a mirror for any high-stakes environment where innocence is treated as a commodity to be traded.
In any industry, really.
Right, whether it's the corporate world, the political arena, or toxic social circles, there are always going to be a Tamarind's giggling as they lead you to the slaughter, and Keisha's waiting to juice you for everything you're worth. When someone tells you that you need to live a little, when they tell you to leave your safe, quiet, crisping drawer and step out into the heat, you must aggressively ask yourself, who benefits from me being out in the heat? Are they trying to help me grow, or are they trying to bake me into a pie?
That is the essential defensive mindset required when navigating environments built on extraction. You have to rigorously evaluate the motives of those encouraging you to abandon your boundaries. But I want to leave you with one final structural thought.
Okay, lay it on us.
Something that goes beyond the interpersonal drama of Strawberryna, Keisha, and Tamarind. We know the cops let Keisha go on a cryptic deal. We know the cops, specifically the guardian angel in blue, intentionally provoked the fight on Memphis Avenue by feeding Keisha false intel. And we know Officer Benson arrested Strawberryna, despite knowing with absolute certainty that she was a victim being hunted by her blackmailer.
Yeah, the institutional betrayal is just staggering.
But look at the broader pattern of how this city operates. The police allow the illegal clubs to operate. They allow the VIP orgies to happen under their noses. They let organizers like Lisa and Marv run their rings until the department needs a high-profile bust, and then they swoop in.
Only when it benefits them.
Right. They use the criminals as informants, and they use the innocent victims as disposable bait. So here is the question you need to mull over today. What if the wacky produce underworld isn't actually run by Pineapple Lisa or Mushroom Marv or even ruthless opportunists like Keisha and Tamarind?
Wait, what are you saying?
What if the entire produce syndicate, the blackmail rings, the VIP setups, the constant churning cycle of juicing the innocent, what if all of it is actually being orchestrated by the police department itself? What if they manage the chaos, allowing the crime to flourish just enough to keep their arrest quotas full, their budgets inflated, and their power over the city absolute?
The police aren't fighting the blender. They own the blender. That is a terrifying thought to end on, but it fits the unredacted facts perfectly. Stay sharp out there, trust your instincts, and whatever you do, keep an eye on your friends who giggle a little too much when they invite you out. We'll catch you on the next exclusive report.
Darren on the beat.